Hello and welcome to this webinar. Welcome to our participants. I see we have a few participants from North America, Europe, and a few from Hong Kong, and of course the majority here in the UK. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We'll have a Q&A in about 30 to 40 minutes and complete in under an hour. So there's a questions tab at the bottom left. Please feel free to add your questions there. Thank you, and let's begin. I have a message for you. Today, there is a new breed of executive leaders in the world, and it's you. Now, you might be thinking, but Stephen, I'm just here to learn about scaling my business and teams and potentially earning monies from exiting my business in the future. But the truth is, you are senior leaders and experts in your own right. You have a story to tell within your company and your stakeholders. Think about it. You are experienced and you have business lessons to teach, and you have a message to share with your CEO, your executive peers, your team, the board, investors, and customers in order to enable better decisions, greater alignment, and speed, which would successfully enable your growth and exit goals. My name is Stephen. I'm a coach and a board level consultant who will activate transformational and growth results with your business and leadership teams. So let's dive in. As a CEO or a C-suite leadership executive, you have an exciting journey ahead for your business. Now, you want to gain that competitive edge to reach that next milestone. And there are areas that you will need to focus on within the context of your senior leadership team. So I'm here today to show you how to, number one, scale your leadership team and activate cross-collaboration. Number two, align your strategic business capabilities. And number three, focus on best execution mechanisms that would help you to progress. And you will get a preview of my blueprint and practical strategies that you can apply. So the Harvard Business Review highlighted 4 things that set successful CEOs and executive leaders apart. They are decisive, they align goals with stakeholder priorities, they proactively adapt, they deliver results in a reliable and agile fashion with their stakeholder groups. Now, I know that the demands placed upon executives like yourselves are intense. Having previously worked as an executive myself and currently working with client executives, I've found they generally worry about 3 things. Number one, their senior leadership teams. Number 2, the leaders in the middle of the organization. And number 3, their company's ability to change and be engaged in the face of challenges. So let me ask you today, as an executive or a senior leader in your company, whichever sector or size of company you are in, using these 3 questions shown here on the screen, can you in your mind identify and highlight areas of strength and opportunities for improvement within your organization? So just take a moment to reflect on this. And your responses will reveal a level of strategic thinking that you need to adopt. So why is this important? So think for a moment of the senior role you have in your company and where you are or where your business is headed. You might be at any one of these stages as shown here: the start phase, the growth phase, scale up, merging, or exit phase. And you will have a plan and a set of pain points or challenges. Now, these challenges will differ for each stage that's described here. This is important to understand, so please pay attention. The senior leadership team that you are part of is a strong force in addressing these pain points and enabling change and growth in the best approach, and realizing your end goal, which might be to exit or to scale up. But the strength and alignment of your leadership team has a profound effect on the overall effectiveness of your company as you journey through those different inflection points as described here. Of course, you may decide to exit at any stage. So the stakes are high. And even if you think your leadership team is already strong, there is significant benefit to improving your collaboration and performance. In other words, the focus here today is on strengthening and aligning your leadership team and referencing a strategy and execution approach to help you. And why? For maximum value of your business to the point of a higher growth or sale. So you might be experiencing a number of growth pains or growth related challenges as a small or mid-sized business. Think for a moment of the scenarios. You might have lost your entrepreneurial spirit or facing performance issues, or you might be rapidly growing and you need to be better at building processes, or you need to be better at what the larger companies excel at without being too bureaucratic or process focused. Or you might be suffering from lack of time and so forth and firefighting every day in and out. So think for a moment, how do you still remain entrepreneurial and adopt an agile approach and get leadership alignment to navigate through those pain points collectively as an executive team across your growth journey? Now, one of the biggest challenges is that most senior leaders today are learning their function as they go, and everyone is wearing multiple hats. Now, that's okay, but they have a tough enough time as there is lots of trial and error, lots of missteps, and lots of valuable time and money squandered as the company scales. But what if scaling and aligning your leadership team could be even easier to achieve your goals? What if there is a blueprint to follow and for you to have real-time conversations with your peers, with your executive teams, and so forth on the pain points you're facing or the big dreams that you want to achieve in the company? So the approach I'm going to share with you today is for the executive or senior leader team member who wants to make a real difference in building their company, their management team, or building their business unit and bringing collaboration and alignment for mutual benefit. Now, if that's you and you are a new or an established executive or senior leader that wants to change the mindset of your diverse teams or executives and share your expertise with your company, and if you are the CEO or a senior leadership team member or a functional head that wants to make a real difference with a real message, you're in the right place today, because I'm going to show you how you can get your voice, your message, your story, and your business lessons, your business lessons, your business topics, and so forth, out to your team and to different stakeholder groups, such as your investors, your board. And why? Because you are basically the leaders owning your growth, performance, and exit goals. Now, I'll share my blueprint that would enable you as an executive to transform and turn around your business or your business challenges and bring clarity on how to collaborate effectively with other leads and become an aligned executive leadership team. Excuse me. So, how did it all begin? There was a time in my career when I felt I wasn't the best executive leader. And let me share my story. When I was a kid and, and a teen, my family struggled financially. We moved around a lot, and we were not together as a unit, which meant there were a lot of distractions for me. And I failed miserably several times in high school because I wasn't focused on academics. And I came to that self conclusion that I wasn't good enough, and I felt misunderstood. But then something clicked in me, and I became this little achiever post university. At the age of 23, in the professional world, I got a job that I designed in a small company that allowed my exposure to various business clients around the world. And I progressed both in my career to senior level positions and in life too. And one day, almost 15 years ago, I was made redundant. My job was a big part of whom I was. And later on, I experienced personal tragic loss. My partner at the time, she died in a car accident. Now, clearly, the universe had designed a path for me, and I was reflecting heavily on my life, my future, my career. Now, while I, subsequently retransitioned and moved into senior executive roles, I sometimes felt that toxic and disruptive ways in the executive teams I was part of, and there were no qualified reference points to course correct. So I personally shifted my mindset and decided to take ownership and coaching support for leadership and strategy. I started demonstrating, sharing on leadership topics, and creating effective and collaborative leadership teams and boards as part of my subsequent roles. So you see, working with and helping business leaders like yourselves and executives like yourselves to make impactful improvements resonated with me. And one of my messages to you is that even if you don't have massive results yet as a leader, go get some results for your internal clients and customers. It doesn't have to be about profitability, it can be about realizations or insights. You don't have to be perfect. You know, excellence is what was taught when we were younger, back in the days. That is, you have to be excellent and perfect at this and that. But these days, speed and agility is important. It's okay to be scrappy, so build, experiment, refine, and publish at speed. Develop your skill set, get good at it, and seek support. And I'm here to share my methods and principles with you to help you grow and to be with you to succeed. So, I want to share a case study with you. A couple of years ago, I worked with a mid market European firm with under 200 staff. I worked with two layers of leadership teams to increase their synergy and effectiveness. One was with their top executive team, and the other with their functional teams. The company recognized that their challenges of being siloed, historical focused, lack of an aligned team, and a strategy to progress with their goals. And the top team had five executives, many of them new to one another and to their roles as well. Second, the functional team, not new, but high personalities and siloed. And both teams needed three things at the very least. One, a clear team purpose that everyone understood. And number two, agreed upon operating principles that outlined how team members would collaborate to achieve their objectives. And number three, a mechanism to define, launch, and execute their strategies in the best possible way. Now, with facilitated sessions and application of a proposed approach, we collectively clarified those pain points, those areas of vision, developed a route map, and focused on the teams and the diverse business parts in order for it to be aligned for growth. Now, the outcome led to the teams being more confident with their purpose and ways of working being clear in order to take that ownership to develop and execute the strategy. So my goal today is to talk to you about how you can scale your leadership teams and business to achieve your end goal, and leverage my leadership and business expansion blueprint. I'll share 3 secrets on how to, number one, focus on the sum of relationships in your executive or functional teams. Number two, align your strategic and business capabilities, as these are supporting reference points. And number three, launch your execution approach. So I'll come into the content very shortly, but to give you a preview, my 4X blueprint demonstrates how to fuel your next stage of growth and expansion to a point of exit. And more importantly, enabling your leadership team to be even more focused and cohesive to successfully execute strategy. The 4 pillars can be applied historically and in a futuristic manner, or in parts, through facilitated sessions in days, or both from an executive leadership level and functional level. This is where we can work together. So, for example, number one, scan your business and executive leadership and identifying main challenges and priorities. Secondly, preparing your executive leaders to think about their journey, vision, the relationships of their teams, and how they would journey through, across the board. And number three, enabling alignment of your business and strategic parts in order to support those cohesive relationships. And number four, establishing a world cafe where you can embed and leverage those cross collaboration mechanisms across teams at all levels. In other words, bringing the other parts of the pillars to life. So now pay attention. I'm going to jump into the content right now, and it's important you turn off everything, your phone, your TV, get a pen and paper, take some notes. If you're distracted, you're not going to get what you need from this webinar. This is for people who are serious about this. So it's for you, so please be present. And I'll briefly talk to pillar 2 and 3. Excuse me. Pillar 2. So let's talk about the makeup of an excellent executive or a senior leadership team and where some of the pitfalls or opportunities are. So knowing this immediately creates connection with your peers, your teams, and your customers. So let's talk about developing this. So the complexities of running a company, even a small growing one, have increased because of increasing pressures from customers, competitors, regulators, and other stakeholder groups as well. So when it comes to leadership team, you'll have to recognize and address faulty assumptions. So firstly, bringing together a group of talented senior executives does not equate to an aligned team. Just think for a moment. Senior executives like you might struggle to balance that need to run individual departments, in addition to company-wide accountabilities. Next, executives assume that their current skills and previous experience will be adequate for becoming good leadership team members. Now, prior experience does not typically prepare executives for the unusual dynamics they will encounter on a leadership team. External demands are greater, evolving from functional only to, company-wide focus can be challenging. And finally, leadership teams are often constructed by default as vehicles for sharing information, reporting out on departmental progress, and receiving updates from the CEO. Well, that doesn't help because you're still reactive and not forward-looking. So the exciting part is that they are winners, and you can be that winner or a better winner as a company and as a leadership team. Now, companies that ranked highly with aligned leadership team have been shown to perform better than average. They operated in a space of the new VUCA: vision, understanding, clarity, and agility, and were able to navigate their business journey at ease or in a downstream manner through growth stages or disruption and inflection points, as we talked about earlier on. This then led to improved top line growth and maximized value of the business. Now, conversely, companies with poor alignment at the top were associated with being highly volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous, and struggled to operate in an and basically operate in an upstream manner, or not with ease. They experienced siloed thinking between their C-suite colleagues and growth and performance not at the best. They executed without being clear and aligned at the top. So whether you are a 2-person leadership team or an 8-person leadership team, there are benefits. Alignment is starting to sound like an important undertaking now. So what does a future state aligned leadership team look like? So as mentioned before, a team of executives or senior leaders, whether it's 2 or 20 in a small or medium size or large company, can be powerful force for achieving whatever it is that you set out to achieve. That is, if it is aligned. And why is it necessary to be aligned? In order to proactively address your pain points, achieve your growth and dreams and performance and exit plans in the best way possible. And it's about addressing those pain points and those parts of vision in a proactively manner. Most leaders have been promoted to the top because of, at one point or the other, they have come in and saved the day. They solve problems and deliver tremendous value to their companies. Now, swooping in to fix things not only creates a dependency on you as a leader, which is exhausting. It kills creativity, strategic focus, team problem solving, ownership and know-how. The best and brightest leaders want to become part of a team where they can make a difference. They don't want to be working for heroes. So we often think of a successful team being whole where there is one strong leader who is good at getting people to work together. Now, I believe that is true, and that leadership is essential to create effective, resilient teams. But part of that leadership is developing a group of individuals to see themselves as an equally powerful unit with the ability to lead and work collectively. So have you as a leader experienced situations in your executive team where, for example, there isn't knowledge of interdependencies, or where there is no mechanism for leveraging diversity of perspectives in a constructive manner? Now, for a company, again, whatever size they are at, to be successful, the executive team must attend to these areas of collective effort, which I've described here as 5 imperatives. 1, having strategic focus and purpose. Number 2, managing boundary management. Number 3, having the right composition of a senior leadership team. Number 4, enabling diversity and inclusion, not just from a gender perspective, from a race perspective, but also from a thinking perspective. And number 5, embedding team interactions, partnerships, and cross collaboration. So you can see how you can actively involve your senior leadership team. That's a big question, involvement. What are the key elements you can work on through facilitated sessions? Now, as shown here, these are some of the key areas you can build and understand how to position yourself and your team. So take notes, 5 points on the slide here. And this is something that you can leverage as well. Now, let's just take one of them today, the first one. So one way of defining your leadership team purpose is to articulate, what do you want this team to be known for? So for example, you could have a statement, this team exists to blank, blank, blank. What decisions do you want this team to make as a team? So some of the useful categories are, for example, defining strategy for growth and exit, agreeing strategic investments or of resources, or managing external relationships, and so forth. So similarly, do a discovery on the other 4 items, but it works well through facilitated sessions. So in addition, getting clear about the most important things for the team to focus on or not focus is key. This is a huge contributor to aligning and becoming clear as a leadership team, and also within yourself, in order to operate well. So in essence, it is about being clear on the intersect between your team interdependencies and the stakes or risks that you have. So offline, make a list of what are the issues and what issues are the most interdependent. Secondly, what issues have the highest stakes or risks? Then plot them here in this visual and use this as a communication tool. And this becomes a powerful one when you are reviewing strategy, when you are meeting as a team, and the alignment issues that you're having in order to address them. Now, just before we continue, let's take a quick sidestep and talk about leadership. Now, leadership is central to achieving, our business goals. Leaders create the culture of a company. Now, you can put whatever strategy you want on a piece of paper, but it's not going to get executed unless the leaders model the right behaviors and are aligned. And in my opinion, you can't focus purely on profit, planet, and expect success. You are the biggest driver in your business. And you've also got to work on yourself. You as a leader need to build your inner game and your outer game. Then your company grows at pace. So as Bernard Shaw rightfully put, life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. So how do you achieve 100% performance? Well, start with your mindset, emotional awareness, your approach, and refocus your energy. Enable others along the way, along your journey, and progressively you then begin to move into that level 5 leadership space. Now, these are concepts that have been developed by known strategists like Jim Collins and Patrick Lencioni and so forth, whom my approaches align with. So in essence, your company grows only as quickly as your leadership capacity does. So we'll wind down shortly on pillar 2, but let me share a recent success story with a small textiles business in Europe. About 60 people with a turnover of 3 million. Now, the MD and board wanted to exit their organization, but they were not getting traction on investment because of the performance issues and low valuation. Now, when speaking with the MD, we had a simple workshop between ourselves, and I shared a few approaches and areas to focus. And she was unsure initially, but a couple of weeks later, she called me and said she got clarity, and that was to take a step back and revisit their goals and put a few things in the back burner. And one of the key items that they undertook was strengthening their 4-person executive team to support their future drivers, because they recognized this was the one of the first steps that they needed to achieve to achieve the end goal, which was to exit. So take a step back to achieve the end goal. Now, the success of the executive leadership teams rests with each member knowing two things. One, what they need to achieve, and number two, how they will achieve it. And the first part is about purpose and identity, and that is one of the results that the team needs to accomplish. And the second part describes the rules of engagement for the team, that is the expected behaviors whilst working together. So in this particular instance with this company, we identified the biggest issues and developed a route map that was executed in days, and for them to carry on. They immediately, as an executive team, became aligned and experienced a sense of collectiveness to identify best opportunities to grow and expand their business. This resulted in growth increase by about 3%, which in turn gave opportunities for maximizing the value of the sale and to be on a productive and beneficial path to exit in the future. Now, they have decided to extend their immediate exit plans, but instead expand to other regions and increase performance, because there seems to be on a winning streak. And there was also even greater clarity and alignment between the board and the executive team. So now, very shortly, I'll show you a summary of the Pillar 2 map within the blueprint. But just to briefly show you the workings of one of those subcomponents, which is building a set of team operating principles that I talked to just a few seconds ago. Step one, you can do this within your executive team. But step one, divide your team into groups of, let's say, 3 or 5, or 2 or 4, and ask each group, or even within your other functional teams as well, and ask each group to develop a list of operating principles that they will use during their activities, and make sure each voice is heard. After each team activity, let the groups edit and add to their list of principles. And after about 2 or 3 rounds of activities, the team should now have a very strong list of principles and behaviors that work, which will form the basis of the operating principles. And then step 2 and 3 is about collating, blending, embedding, and refining. Now try this if you can offline, and I'll share these, this recording so you can reference this. Now these are some of the coverage areas within the blueprint, which you can adopt with my facilitation support. So you might be asking, what steps can I take to scale my leadership team? And what you see here is a summary route map for Pillar 2. It is that 5-step formula within Pillar 2 of the blueprint. And the main output is creating a team charter for your executive team. But you also achieve a diverse set of outcomes. Now remember this is key. So by facilitating and actively involving you, the executive team members, individually and collectively, you can achieve an aligned team and enable cross-collaboration at its best in order to achieve your drivers. So I'll briefly provide a snapshot of Pillar 3, which is the next pillar, and some areas for your thinking. Now, previously in Pillar 2, we talked about scaling and aligning the leadership team. That's the relational aspect. Pillar 3, which we're just going to talk to very briefly, brings out the strategic and business parts that highlights the guardrails for advanced execution and reference points for your executives like yourselves to become aligned. So before we delve in, I just want to share very briefly the outline of business misalignment. Now, the best performing companies are often the best aligned, but not all companies, are aligned. So what are the reasons? It could be because of critical business or strategic and leadership components that are overlooked, or it could be because of complexity, or even because of heavy planning but poor execution. Now, take a moment to reflect on this within your company. So, as a functional leader or executive or an executive team, there are 5 parts that you need to harmonize and arrange as illustrated here. Now, this is what business alignment looks like. Remember, you've got your leadership team and you've got all these different parts. They all need to be harmonized. So it means winning through a tightly managed value chain that connects a purpose to its business strategy, to the capability, to the company architecture, and finally to the management systems. But let me ask you, do you tend to focus on one of these areas to the exclusion of the others? What really matters for performance is how they all fit together. So it's very important to get some recognition of this, as it goes hand in hand with how your executive leadership team operates to achieve your big drivers. Okay, so how do you align your business parts? There's a mechanism for that. And how do you align those business parts so that your executive leadership team is equipped and operates cohesively or in an aligned manner? There's a saying, rarely do companies need to replace their entire system. Just tune up and align the components and you will get optimum performance. And a method to do that is shown here. Your leadership team is key to this tune up, as they now have the reference points that we talked about previously in order to be aligned as a high impact executive leadership team. So within pillar 3, there are 4 steps that you can leverage for distilling the vision, that strategic information, to a simple page. Because we don't want to, develop documents. This is getting into 1 to 3 pages, which can then be built into manageable sprints in days. And you can build the rhythm and habits for improved execution. And there are big outcomes you can achieve. Now, we are at the start of 2022, and it's a great time to evaluate and start your leadership team and strategic information. George, General George S. Patton, stated a principle very, very concisely, actually, when he said, a good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. So as a leader, you need to get comfortable with that phrase, I can live with this. I can live with it. So I'll open up to questions shortly. But now you've seen a preview of my blueprint that encompasses facilitated sessions with your leadership team. This blueprint will help support your next stage of growth and expansion to a point of exit with maximum business value. Now, as your business is unique, this blueprint is flexible enough to help identify your biggest problems, your vision, and draw out the priorities that are most important to you to execute at pace. And I can help you through one-on-one and group facilitated sessions with your team to get the best outcomes for you. Excuse me. So the reality is, I'd love to go on and teach you this, but you've got a preview and you've got some tools that you can go and self-do as well. But this is literally something that would take time for me to actually go through in detail and to actually help you do it properly. And we've only been going through this for really about 40 minutes or so. To really do the justice that you deserve with this, you're going to have to continue your education with me to learn and apply the parts of this 4X blueprint. We will need to work together through facilitated sessions with you and your leadership team because your business situation is unique. You may only use parts of it. Now, as a wise leader once said, one of the tests of leadership is the ability to recognize a problem before it becomes an emergency. Now, we are in the start of 2022, and this is a great time to refocus, and I encourage you to review. I'll open up for questions, and I invite you right now to book a call with me. So there's several questions that have come through the questions tab. I can see there's a question. What is the biggest challenge you've experienced when working with the C-suite? That's a good question. Look, I think in my experience, there's been a level of skepticism by the C-suite or by the CEO. It's a feeling that they have it all under control, which they do because they're running the business. But also, it's an understanding that they have a lack of clarity initially. They open up to fresh perspectives when a level of trust and approach is established. And that's very key. So that initial stages of really understanding where they're at in their mind and how they're wanting to take their business forward, even if it's in bites, helps to actually understand what's really going on in their minds and what's really stopping them from actually moving forward. But once that is actually removed, they begin to open up and understand how they can actually work with you on bits and parts of it. Hope that answers that question. I've got a couple of questions, actually about 3 questions here, which is similar. So I'm just going to wrap it all up into one. So do you find a difference in senior leadership teams, with small, medium-sized companies versus corporates? Yes, absolutely. There are differences, obviously from a size perspective, but also because smaller and medium-sized businesses are able to work in an agile manner, versus the corporates take a little bit longer time. But the important thing to remember here is that they've got similar type of challenges when it comes to working in silos. For example, if you look at a small and medium-sized business, not all executive team members or their heads of functions understand what's going on in the other function. Or if they do, to what degree do they understand those interdependencies, for example? They do have team challenge issues as well. The difference between the corporates and the small, medium-sized companies is that it's about the degree to which they have the problem. So in smaller and medium-sized businesses, it might be contained, and they might be able to navigate that more quickly with certain tools and mechanisms, whilst in the larger companies it takes a little longer because they're scaled at a higher stage. So hope that helps. How do you calculate ROI on this? Yeah, that's a very good question. So we always, with any endeavor that's undertaken as part of this, it's to bring about metrics. Now, generally, organizations have scorecards or metrics in place, objectives and key results, for example. The important thing is to actually tie that to those existing metrics, and some of those metrics might be related to the EBITDA. Or your balance sheet, how does it actually improve your growth performance, your cost income ratios from a financial perspective, or from a marketing perspective and maturity of a net promoter score. It could be tied into engagement and so forth. But I'm just describing the concept here of metrics. This is something that we will explore collectively. And if it's not presently available in the organization, then we will collectively develop that. There's about 2 questions here on uplifting senior leadership teams. So you spoke about uplifting leadership teams. How do you uplift senior leaders and teams as well? Well, there are 2 parts to this. One is you as a leader, and the other is getting the alignment, making sure you're on the same page, singing from the same hymn book. Now, the first part of uplifting is about your inner game and outer game. Your inner game is your sense of purpose and service. It teaches you resilience and gives you the confidence that you'll be able to learn whatever comes your way. When the world is uncertain, it's really your inner game that allows you to be agile, to be flexible, and to say what's needed in this moment. Your outer game, on the other hand, is your passion for high performance, your business acumen, and results orientation. The inner game is what fuels the outer game, and the more you invest in your inner game, the more you get limitless resources to fuel your growth, limitless ideas, and limitless flexibility to do the right things, but also to do it differently as well. So it's important to look at leadership from your self perspective, but also at a group level. And these are some of the mechanisms of uplifting capabilities that we will talk to as part of those initial sessions that we will have, because it's making sure that we're focusing on the right things. I see there's a few questions on expansion of business. Absolutely, expansion of business is huge, and it's because you might have a strategy or you might not have a strategy, but this would enable you to identify what's really best for you. I mean, look, typically when we look at expansion of business, understand what your product is or what your product strategy is. So make sure that you adopt a clear product strategy. Make sure that you keep a light footprint, in terms of infrastructure and so forth when you're expanding, so you can actually navigate through fairly quickly, and making sure that you have an experienced partner on the other side. When you have an experienced partner, it all comes back to, or any of these comes back to alignment, making sure that your executive team or the responsible people are aligned collectively, so that you can expand in the best possible way and make it happen. Expansion is not just a toggle on or a toggle off type of an approach. It's huge. There is so many steps involved in it, and you want to make your business sustainable with this expanded offering as well. So it's important to make sure that all your team members are aligned throughout this journey, as these are big growth plans, as mentioned before. I've got a couple of questions here. How would this work in practice? It's a very good question. So, look, the real first step is about you, because there are decisions you need to make with your internal self. One of them is, do I actually want to change from the status quo? And when we have an initial discussion, I take an approach of understanding where the client is in their mind. And in terms of coaching and consulting, think of coaching as done with you, while consulting is done for you. I bring a blend of both in order to add value. and mostly focus on doing with you, as that is key for sustainable effect. So we can scope whether you want the light touch or the full entity, and we can collaborate and co-develop what is best and right for you. And generally it will require some coaching, both from a one-on-one perspective and from a group level, because we want to get collective traction. And the second is about facilitation. This can be done in days, in 2 or 10 days, for example, but it's generally in days. And then we do it in sprints, basically, and an agenda can be drawn up. And next, some skills development, as we talked about earlier. And then finally, the implementation aspects of it is where we work together to determine specific initiatives for implementation, the what and how, and any specialists that might be needed. Now, I will tailor whatever is aligned to your strategy, your goals, vision, and aligned to it. This is important because your business situation is unique. So in summary, we collaborate and co-develop what is best for you. Any other questions before we close? Okay, wonderful. We said we will complete in under an hour, and we have done that. Thank you very much. Please book your call and 45-minute call with me. Thank you.